better.
Thank you, Justin. Thank you, everybody.
Yes, I was thanking everybody. Justin Thompson, Crosstown Arts, Bridget Wheeler, Miriam Bale. There are some special people here too, who came from far and wide. One is still en route from California. Her plane was delayed. Sarah Terrio, who is co-producer, who was on this ride a long time. My son, who's 4, made it through half of the film from New York with me. Yeah. Kata Phillips, who's the artist that you saw featured, the painter, is here. And I think what am I missing? My own Memphis Mafia, Diana Trushall, who did the graphics, that amazing poster, and Anna Fetter. Yeah, and watching it again, I just was struck by how much it is about shared experience and how meaningful it was to have this, and that it happened at all is really a bit of a miracle.
Yeah, so again, watching this, I've seen this now 4 or 5 times, and again, it was just yesterday that I'd done the last rewatch, and now I've got a whole new slew of questions that I didn't pick up the first few times, but I do want to leave it to just a few. Again, to remind everybody, we're not going to be doing an audience Q&A in the theater, but what we are going to do is that Annie and her crew will be outside in that atrium area, right out front, outdoors, that we definitely want to encourage you to come and speak with them, ask your questions, get to know them, and learn more about the film, because like I said, on my however many times watching this film, I had even more questions, so I will be out there listening in as well. But to get started, I do have a slew of notes. Thank you for allowing me to not go off book this evening with my first time back. So 20 years is a really very long time. Yes, God bless you. And so much has happened to our world since you began this project at the turn of the millennium, the digital revolution from digital cameras, cell phones, social media, YouTube, so on. We see lots of different media used in the film, starting with photographs and Super 8 film, various video formats, and stop-motion animation. The use of all of these techniques creates a unique and often haunting aesthetic. How has the passage of time influenced the making of this film, and how did it inform your choices in film formats?
Good question. Yeah, it's a very long time. It's remarkable to think that we were shooting on film, and then I was shooting in the beginning on mini DV, and that was the new state-of-the-art camera, and I was really very excited to have it. And you see all those tapes building up, and I was also shooting on Super 8 film whenever I could, because I just loved the look of it, and also how it made me make like judicious decisions about shooting, because you're limited by, I think it's 5 minutes, 2.5 minutes, I can't remember.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, and it's expensive, and so you're just,
Sure.
And in the beginning, it was more a film that was about images and the juxtaposition, so I didn't imagine it like at all. This film that you saw, that's an interview-based film. Is it really cold?
I know, I'm a little cold as well, so.
It's freezing. I dressed for the outside weather.
So, I haven't been cold in, I don't know, 6 months, so.
Maybe I'm just shivering in my shoes. So yes, and then and the mediums changed over the years, obviously, and so there was a moment where I could have switched to HD, and I thought about it, and I thought, well, I wanted this kind of unified look, and so I made the decision to stick with my camera.
Right.
And then, yeah, I worked with someone in Portugal who restored all this material to make it look much better than it did.
Yeah. It's kind of overwhelming just to kind of digest your answer and then also think of a million follow-ups right now. But I think the most important one, I think probably on most of our minds is, so then you must have had a ton of material, and we see that building up in the film. So how much footage did you actually have, and how the heck did you navigate your way through all of that?
Yeah.
20 years, again, for context, 20 plus years.
Yeah, thanks, yeah. It's like my life flashing before my eyes.
Sorry.
So yeah, those tapes you saw building up, there were 200 mini DV tapes, so that's 200 hours of footage. And 1,000 still photos, actually. Yeah, yeah, and so, yeah, it was quite an ordeal to navigate through it.
Yeah.
And we laugh about it, but we made like 10 different films out of it, actually. And we screened them for audiences and,
Oh, wow.
for feedback and everything.
Right.
And so it became really very much about the process of finding the story, and that also evolved as I aged, actually.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
How I saw the material and the world as I grew up.
Yeah, I guess it kind of also, I mean, did you like log these tapes as you went? Like, did you have to like, I mean, because I know it's like, going back to my film school days, I think about like what that process was like, and it just was like, it was so tedious and just, and obviously it's different than when you're in school doing a project, obviously, besides making something that's deeply, truly personal. So like, what did that look like as you went? In order to not, at the end of it, or at the end of each kind of segment or era of the film, like, how did that look, I guess?
Yeah, I was obsessively logging it all. Like you said, I was transcribing it.
So you're organized.
To a degree. Yeah, there was method to the madness, but it was complete madness, really. But transcribing it was a way that I could really delve into it. And so, I could recite all the words that are not in the movie.
Wow.
I really just know it backwards and forwards. Which is strange too, because I was spending time with people who were frozen in time. And so to see people now like Kata Billups, and it's just like, she's still that Kata Billups, but she's also not. It's a funny thing. So, but it took me, it was, I don't know if it was like 7 cuts before there was even a narration, actually.
Wow, yeah.
So, so it really became about tracking the questions of the journey and how the questions evolved over time.
Yeah. So you just mentioned something interesting. You're, interacting with people kind of frozen in time, but also yourself too at different points. So obviously this film was very deeply personal, especially with the loss of your Aunt Nora. So how did you decide to incorporate your own story and voice amongst all of this?
Yeah, there was some point in the process when I realized that the story only makes sense in my head. Because what is the connection between these three, right? I mean, there are connections, you see them, but I was making those connections. And so I was doing it when I was absent in the film through editing choices and juxtaposition, but it was, without my voice, I felt more like we were looking at instead of being within.
Right.
And, excuse me, part of what that meant was the getting closer, and what brought me closer was really understanding death personally, which, when I started, I was 21, and I was lucky to have been shielded from death, and that aided in that cynical kind of view. It allowed me to just, have fun and think this is also funny. And, right, and to be there at the vigil really, I'm shivering, yeah, so, what was I, yeah, but right, so when my Aunt Nora died so unexpectedly and dramatically, and I was so devastated, it was really the people I had met in the process of making the film who actually understood that most deeply and were able to provide the solace that, even those close to me didn't have the words for, and that was really a surprise, really. And so it is actually, when after Laura died, when I did return to vigils then, it was the things that had struck me as kind of cliche rang just really true, and right, so it was my way of entering into the story. And
I really like how you just said about the cliche of having gone through a loss in just the past month. It's something that has kind of come up numerous times in conversations with mutual friends of like that. Suddenly it's those cliches that just really that actually hit much differently, right?
Right, you hear a song on the radio.
Yes, you're like,
Yeah,
oh
I
my
get
goodness. And even just like, and there's moments, throughout watching the film and our conversations, where I'm like, oh God, because it is with grief and everything that it's just really therapeutic. So thank you. So although you mentioned in your film your struggle with understanding the faithful, you are extremely sympathetic and kind in your depictions. What was your general approach to interviews, and how did you maintain such a non-judgmental standpoint?
Thank you. I think it's the benefit and luxury of time that I had, and I do see that as a privilege, because you see with the news reporter that he didn't have the time, and I don't judge him for that either in a way, because he has to turn out a story, and most of us are beholden to those kinds of deadlines to some degree, and so I would say I was, it's just by being able to spend real time with people and get those kinds of relationships to develop, because at first I cringe when I see some of my questions. I did not get it, and even the way the camera was roving to the pink and black gals, like I'm looking at their buttons, I'm not looking at them talking,
Sure.
It was a growing experience.
Yeah. What a beautiful moment of hindsight that, to experience with you. So I'm curious to hear more about your collection and how you begin to identify with the fans and faithful as a collector yourself.
Yeah, so it's funny because my collection is the tapes, right? So I could see myself as not a collector for quite a while, right? I'm not one of you, I'm just looking in, but then I had to reckon with it at some point. I moved over the course of 20 years, maybe 20 times. And at each time it's like, oh, there are a lot of boxes. and storage units, right? They could fill a truck. So at that point, it is realizing that who am I to judge? And I think Ralph Burns says it really well, the photographer in the film, about that we all have these things that we get very obsessed with, or Margaret, who says, some people are obsessed with football or cricket, and so actually for me, I don't think I've told this story before, but I live in New York City, and I was going to a screening and talk of Agnes Varda, and at some point I realized I was second in line, and I thought, oh, okay, maybe I am a fan of something or someone. It's hard to completely be outside of fandom,
Absolutely. I think it's actually, I think it's impossible. And that's what I believe. Thank you for all of that. And Annie, you've just been so wonderful. And I could just talk to you for hours. I know the rest of us could also as well. And I do want to open it up to you guys by inviting you outside.
Where it's warmer.
Where it is much warmer, because I know I am also trembling up here along with Annie. I'm very cold. But one last thing before we do send everyone out, what is next for you and the faithful? What can we expect, and how can we help support you in your journey?
Well, thank you so much. This has, again, just been completely extraordinary. If I had dreamed this, it would, I think I did dream this would happen. I dreamt first that I would finish the film. I never thought would happen. But yes, this is really just the beginning. We are traveling with the film, kind of more like the garage band, so if there are theaters where you live, or if you live in Memphis, our next stop is, we're going to a festival. We're doing this all backwards because it's pandemic style, so we're having our festival premiere.
Anything goes, total chaos, full anarchy.
Yeah, in that full anarchy style, we have our festival premiere next month in Camden, and then
Wonderful.
Thank you, and then we're going to West in October. We'll be in LA for a week, and Seattle and San Francisco.
Excellent.
And the rest is unwritten. But right now we are screening virtually at the Maisel, so people can tune in if your friends want to see it.
And that's through Thursday, right?
That's through Thursday. Yes.
Awesome. Well, and what's the website again?
It's the with a dash faithful, and the faithful is all of our handles, Instagram and Twitter, and if you're looking on Facebook, you have to add film to the end of the faithful.
And you can also look at Indie Memphis Social, because we have been posting quite a bit about it, and we were very excited, as you can tell.
And that was so great of Megan is here. Thank you.
Oh yes, huge shout out to Megan, our director of marketing. She's not here, but I will make sure that she gets this message as well. Again, everyone, huge round of applause for Annie Berman. see you all out